Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Power Hour panel. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Power Hour panel, where we get together and we discuss current events that are happening across the globe and right here in this great nation. Now, right now, there is an issue going on at the border, and I am not talking about the southern border. I'm talking about the border up by Canada. So right now, the Freedom Convoy has made its way to Canada. So Wade, what are your thoughts about the Freedom Convoy?
So I think it's amazing that you have this giant wall of steel moving across Canada. I mean, literally, it's just truck after truck after truck after truck. It just goes on forever. And there's very little. There's talk about it in the media, but there's very little talk in the media here anyway. Of course, I'm not watching any Canadian news stations. I'm sure it's all over them. But I find it amusing that there's not more worldwide coverage of this event because we're not talking 2 or 3 trucks or even 10.
And Sean, what are your thoughts?
Well, the social media part is very organized. I think they've raised $10 million or more. That is a huge amount of money to have raised for a cause or an effort in a short amount of time. So it seems like the infrastructure of that is pretty well organized.
I think that's probably why they're not promoting it still.
Yeah, I mean, I think their social media reach is far greater than their mass media reach.
So right now at the Canadian border, essentially what they are protesting originally was the vaccine mandate. They are protesting the vaccine mandates that were put in place on truckers in January. Now, initially they were protesting just the vaccine mandate for truckers, but now they're protesting vaccine mandates across the board in both Canada and in the United States. Now, right now, they're calling the blockade that's happening in Alberta unlawful. And earlier this week, I spoke about the blockade that was in Ottawa, but now we're seeing that the blockade is moving along and it's wreaking damage at several different borders. Now, the border in Alberta has blocked traffic from moving back and forth. And on the other side of the border in Montana, essentially, they have been turning people away from crossing the border because cars have been sitting there since Saturday with essentially no place to go because the convoy is backing everything up. So what are your thoughts about the convoy backing everything up on the border?
I think they're making their point.
I think it's a very effective protest for what it's doing and what it's causing. The reason for the protest, I mean, I don't think Americans understand the reason for the protest exactly. I mean, you say it's vaccinations, but I think it's more than vaccinations. I think it's the economic aspect of vaccinations more than it is the health aspect of vaccination. I think there's something bigger going on there. And I also think it's a test market. I think what Americans really who haven't traveled outside the U.S. a lot and haven't seen international media or been in other countries with international media and looked at the U.S. and how they look at the U.S. from the outside world, which I've done a lot of before COVID. I did a lot of worldwide travel or traveling outside the U.S. Oftentimes, what they fail to understand is that the conservative and liberal wings of governments around the world are similar to our own in a way, in some respects. And so our political operatives, they operate in Europe, for example. People go, why is some political operative a conservative or liberal? Why are they over there in Europe talking to European leaders? Because they're making strategies, either one way or another, with their political views or their political in-runs. And I think that's what's happening in Canada. I think that wing of that aspect of Canada, the conservative wing in Canada, has helped organize this area. And they're doing a test market, which I think will be duplicated in the U.S. soon.
And I think you're right. So right now, several big U.S. figures have come out in support of the convoy. So Donald Trump to Elon Musk have all come out stating that they support the convoy. And there is reports right now, because I know we were speculating that when it comes closer to midterms, like you said the other day, Sean, when it comes closer to midterms, we're probably going to see convoys and protests like this happen across the United States. But right now, there's reports that a convoy could make its way from California to Washington, D.C. in the next coming days, coming weeks, or even coming months. But they are talking about having the convoy go across the United States to join in protesting the vaccine mandates.
Yeah, so it seems like it's not random to me. It seems like there are centralized, I don't know who their centralized organizers are, but it doesn't seem random to me. It's too well organized. Like,
It does seem,
yeah, I mean, if you had a random kind of emotional thing that said, oh, a couple truckers get together and then they all talk on social media and they say they're going to do that. But I mean, there seems to be funding behind it. There seems to be resources, and now they've raised a bunch of money. So whenever a lot of money gets involved, I mean, that's usually a sign of something different when a lot of money gets involved.
So did we ever discover if it was true that this thing is like 1,500 miles long in Canada?
I'm not sure how long it is. I know they're not going anywhere, but I'm not sure how long it is. I think I don't know if it's all the way across, but I think it's at key points in the border, right? So with Alberta, they're basically stationed around that border area, and they're keeping people from moving in and out. In Ottawa, I think there is still traffic moving in it between the border, but I think I'm not sure how long it is, but it's definitely causing a lot of havoc at these major entry points between Canada and the United States.
So when you think about it, from Virginia to San Diego is about 3,300 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about a convoy end to end that goes halfway across the United States, if that's true. That's a pretty substantial fuck you.
It is.
So now if you add even half of that of the United States truckers to that, that is an extremely substantial problem.
Well, we even have to look at it in Canada, right? So right now, about 10%, only 10% of truckers that make that cross across the border, only 10% are actually not vaccinated. So it is a small majority making more of the noise. But again, they're still making a lot of noise.
Well, you and I both have a different definition of the word small majority.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They may be small, but they're pretty damn big.
I'll say they're small, but they have loud voices.
So.
That's where I'll go with that. So where do you think here's the big question is, where do we go from here? So Trudeau has essentially come out and stated that he's not going to bend to their will. And there has been politicians on the Canadian side trying to talk to the leaders and the organizers of the convoy to see what they can do to get them to leave. But taking away the vaccine mandate is not going to be something that they do. And the government has been holding on very strongly to that. So what does this happen? Is this the new Occupy Wall Street? Is this something that's going to be going on for weeks, for months, for a very long time? Now, again, they raised, 9 million Canadian dollars, so $7 million US dollars through GoFundMe. However, GoFundMe has confirmed that the Truckers' Freedom Convoy, the funds are being held until there is a clear plan, I guess, where the money is going or whatnot. So even though they've raised a lot of money through places like GoFundMe, they're not going to get the money right now. So what do you think is going to happen? Again, this is all speculation, but where do we go from here? Do you think they're going to be camped out at the border? Do you think this is going to spread across North America like wildfire? What do you guys think? And then Sean, we'll go to you first.
I expect it to hit the U.S. before or by the midterms area. I think it's an effective protest. I think what the conservative aspect of it and where they're going, and it has a populist feel to it in a way, and it would work in many different states in the U.S., is this statement that there's a government overreach on vaccination restrictions or mandates. And there's a lot of people that have a sense of that because they're being economically impacted by that livelihood or whatever has happened since the pandemic has hit. And there is a lot of support, I think, out there in certain parts of the country for that view. And I think that's where their view is coming from. They're saying that, Trudeau has done overreach, right? He's created an overreach, which is make it a dilemma for them to run their businesses. And a lot of these are self-employed people. Truckers are not always employed for corporations. They're often self-employed people. So he's saying he's making a self-employed entity have a very difficult time to make a living, because they're restricted going back and forth between the illusional border we have, because I love to talk about this, the illusional border that we have between on both sides of our border, because we don't really have economic borders. We just have people borders. So, because trucks can go through, no problem. And materials can go through no problem. So yeah, it's big. We're talking big money. We're talking big economics because we're talking, we're talking global American trade in the Americas. So it's big money, big money.
Wade.
I think this is the way you protest. There's no burning of buildings. There's no rioting. There's no nothing. They are making their points by steel. By these lines of steel, they are making their points. And here's what's going to happen. Truckers are the backbone. If they are not moving goods, we as a society are going to come to terms with them much quicker than if they were moving goods and just complaining.
So I have a question for you, Wade.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go in my memory bank. I'm trying to go back, and I'm pretty sure we had the conversation when Black Lives Matter were protesting, and they blocked the exits on the freeway. Do you remember when they marched up and blocked the exits on the freeway? Essentially doing the same thing.
No.
How is it not the same thing?
Because they also blocked emergency services.
They what?
They also blocked emergency services and refused to let them go by 9 times out of 10. I guarantee you run an ambulance through that, every trucker will move, no issues.
There's literally people on the
truckers are breaking into banks. And I guarantee you they're not setting fire to anything.
So I'm going to disagree with you. I feel as though, depending on who's protesting, people have different views. I think it's the same thing. Because right now, you have people in Alberta who are stuck, who have been stuck there since Sunday. They're just people trying to get home. They have no bathroom. They have no food. They have no provisions. They're trying to get at them in Alberta. Now remember, I've been talking about Ottawa for the past couple of days. But in Alberta, they're not even letting people come near the border anymore to cross because there have been people sitting there for days without things. Who
is not allowing them?
Who's not allowing them into Canada? The Border Patrol. They stop people from going into that out through. So between Montana and Alberta, they're stopping that point of entry.
So it's not the truckers, it's Border Patrol.
No, they're stopping it because the truckers have essentially blocked the traffic.
Congestion. Yeah, it's congestion. Yeah.
They're just not letting anything go through. Anything, nobody, no emergency vehicles, nobody.
I guarantee you, emergency vehicle rolls through there, they'll let them through.
Now, I have a bigger view on this one than what's going on initially here, because I think it is a good political statement that they're making, and I think it's effective. I'm not sure if I favor it or I'm on their side, but I would say that it's effective. But here's a bigger issue that the truckers have. The truckers really are the first to be eliminated by automation. And who's going to do that? Elon Musk. Elon Musk is literally making, vehicles that require no drivers. Okay. And then they have trucks that are no drivers. And Walmart's going to do that. And all the big areas in the US are going to do that. And they're, all you do is you have everything put, but there's no person driving it. It's going from one area to one fulfillment center to another fulfillment center, basically robotically. And we're investing in that in the US like crazy. I mean, Elon Musk has got billions in it. Walmart's also planning to do it. And so the truckers have a bigger issue. The very future of the trucker is maybe gone in the next 10 years. That there's actually people driving material things around the US or anywhere in the world. And if Elon Musk had his way, which is very ironic that, he's kind of part of that, or would have a view on that, he's the killer of it. He's literally the killer of their dreams. He's going to take their jobs.
Which is
I
funny
think
that
this is a much more effective protest.
So I agree with both of you guys that it's effective, but I also agree if it was majority Black people protesting, people would find a problem with it.
No. If there was a majority of Black truck drivers sitting in Alberta or Ottawa right now doing what they're doing, nobody would really have a problem with it other than the people that currently have a problem with it right now. So if there was a bunch of truckers in Ottawa that were Black that got out of their trucks and started beating people on the side of the road and burning down buildings, screaming, pay attention to me, we would all have a problem with it.
I'm going to tell you something right now. If a bunch of Black truckers set up their trucks to protest against police killing an unarmed Black man, people would have a problem. The same people who are supporting this protest would have a problem with it. Now, like I say all the time, I support people's right to protest. I don't care what you're protesting. I may disagree with what you're protesting about, but I support your right to protest.
I totally support it too. And if there was a group of truckers that were protesting someone being killed by police, an unarmed Black man, and they were all Black, whatever, and they surrounded the police department with trucks, I'm still okay with it. The moment they get out and start kicking in the windows and trying to burn down buildings and things like that, I have a problem with it. That's not protesting, that's rioting.
So going back to that, there were bad actors, the same way that there are bad actors in this protest as well. And the reason why I'm not commenting on the bad actors in this is because it's not the majority of the people. The same way that I don't comment on the rioters when I'm covering the protest for Black Lives Matter.
I haven't seen any news stories of people burning down buildings that are truckers.
In this situation, there are people who are harassing people in Canada. They harassed soup kitchens. They harass small businesses. I'm not covering it because the majority of the protest is peaceful.
Okay, define harassing the soup kitchen.
So they've been trying to go to restaurants.
Okay.
They've been trying to go to restaurants. They were unable to go to restaurants because they said that they had to wear their mask.
Okay.
They got belligerents. There are being reports of them, doing things to the businesses, kicking windows, throwing things, stuff like that. When they couldn't get into the restaurants, they made their way down to the soup kitchen and started demanding that the soup kitchen give them food because they couldn't get food elsewhere.
So again, that's a problem, and they should have been dealt with.
They are being dealt with. But it's the same thing. I'm not talking about the bad actors when I'm talking about the protest, the same way that I don't talk about the bad actors when I'm talking about the protest for Black Lives Matter. Because at the end of the day, with any protest, there's going to be people. Right now in the protest, there are people, and it's not a few number of people in these protests in the Freedom Convoy, where they're waving flags with the swastika, where they are bringing in neo-Nazi symbolism, flags, statements, neo-Nazi chants. But that's not the majority of the protest.
So this is on the Canadian side, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's clarify something for people who don't understand. All right. You have the ability to say whatever you want in America. You do not have the ability to escape the consequences. All right. If a bunch of neo-Nazis are in America and they're waving Nazi flags and swastikas and all that, I would expect the Americans to kick their asses. All right. Period. So I'm okay with that. I don't know what the policies or the politics is like in Canada that does give them the right to do that or not. Does that make sense? If they're given the right to do it, then they have the right to do it. Again, they can say anything they want. They have to live with the repercussions of it.
So there's been calls for Canada to essentially ban the swastika and neo-Nazi things. But I'm going to tell you right now, I don't expect anyone in the Freedom Convoy to do anything about the neo-Nazi symbolism that's happening there.
Why
And
would
do you
they?
know
It has
why?
nothing to do with their
Do you know
point.
why? Do you know why? Because every major conservative protest, every major conservative rally, there are people doing that. Don't get me, I'm not calling conservatives Nazis. I'm not calling conservatives neo-Nazis. But all neo-Nazis in this country, in the United States and in Canada as well, are right-wing. Not all conservatives.
Yeah, I'm glad you made that definition. That
I'm going to put it
line.
across. Not all
we're not
conservatives are
calling them that.
neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
However, all neo-Nazis in Canada and in the United States are conservatives. And they feel very comfortable going to things like the Freedom Convoy and going to places like various protests that happens and flying the flags, the neo-Nazi flags, having neo-Nazi tattoos, chanting neo-Nazi chants at right-wing events. And even when it happens here in the United States, even here in the United States, when they do that, nothing ever happens to them. Even when
they have the ability to say whatever they want. They're not free of the consequences, though.
No, I'm not talking about with the law. I'm not talking about with counter protesters. I'm talking about with people in general. I'm talking about with people who are protesting next to them. Because I'm going to tell you right now, let's say that I was protesting something and I saw somebody who had a neo-Nazi flag. Me and the people that I associate with them would tell them they'd have to go. If I was in charge of a protest, if I was the leader or the organizer of a convoy or a protest for whatever reason, and I saw that a group of 30 people were flying neo-Nazi flags, I would get on the loudspeaker and be like, we don't do this. We don't support this. You need to go.
And that's
we're here for this cause, not that.
I don't agree with neo-Nazis. Don't get me wrong. I'd like to see all of them duct taped up and buried in concrete and thrown out in the ocean. That's my personal opinion. But they also here in the U.S. have the right to their protest, just like you do.
But they're not. They're joining joining into the protest. So
again, they have a right to say whatever they want, but they're not free of the consequences.
Wait, if you were organizing a protest for pinup girls, I don't care what it is. You were organizing a protest for pinup girls, and a group of neo-Nazis came in to your protest. You're in charge of it. And you see a group of 30 neo-Nazis waving the flag at your protest, supporting you, but at your protest. You would let them stay?
I would let law enforcement do their job. I would ask them to separate us. They still have a right to say what they want to say in the U.S. I don't know what their rights are in Canada. Assuming they still have the same rights in Canada that they have here, they can still say, they can still yell, they can still scream, they can do whatever they want within the laws. And I would ask the law enforcement that's there to separate us and keep us separate to prevent an issue. Do I have a right to tell somebody that they can't protest for whatever reason it is? Because if I have that right to tell somebody that they can't protest, then they have the right to tell me I can't.
So if you organize a protest, this is your protest, and they come to join your protest, and they're decked out in neo-Nazi gear. Remember, this is your protest. You're the leader.
I would have law enforcement intercede. That's what I would have done. I would have law enforcement intercede. Sean, they can scream and yell all they want. That's their right in America. As long as we aren't in each other's faces fighting, that's not what protesting is about. Protesting is about getting your message out there for people to hear and see and to hear the side of it and to hopefully affect change. It doesn't matter what you're protesting. Now, I agree. There's scumbags and they should be buried, like I said. But they still have the right.
I'm going to tell you right now that the narrative now coming out is that neo-Nazis are protesting in Canada.
Because that's the fucking media selling clicks.
But it is happening. There are neo-Nazis. It's not a lie, though.
It's not a lie. But the media.
There are neo-Nazis going into Canada, but it's not a lie. There are neo-Nazis going into Canada protesting the vaccine mandate. It's not a lie. That is exactly what's happening. It's not the majority, but the majority is allowing them to stand side by side with them.
But what sells clicks to advertisers? sensational.
I'm going to
news
tell you
story.
right now, if I organized a protest and I saw, let's change it, I saw people in full KKK gear, I would get on the loudspeaker and be like, we're not doing this here. You have to leave this protest. This protest is for the vaccine mandate, and we don't spread hate. Because even in the United States and in Canada too, you have freedom of speech until it crosses over to hate.
Define that. Because anti-vaccination speeches could be defined as hate crime.
It's not. It's against,
And so
you know what hate
saying
crimes are, legally
that
what
we
hate crimes
should be
are. If
dragging
it's
people
crimes
out of
against
houses and
race, if it's
jabbing them.
crimes against sexual orientation, you know what a hate crime is. You know when someone's being robbed, and you know when it's a hate crime.
I'm just saying that you do not have the right to determine who can and can't say what they want. You don't have that right. I don't have that right. You do have the
Yes,
right, though, to
as a
protest
leader of an organization, as a
peacefully
leader,
and be allowed to protest peacefully. And law enforcement has to enforce that.
I'm telling you right now, if I am the leader of a protest, if it's my convoy, if it's my protest, if I'm the one who organized it, yes, I have a right to tell people, if you can't come in without being hateful, then you have to leave our protest. Go do your own protest somewhere else.
Yeah, go stand across the street and do yours. I'm okay with that. But you can't tell
That's
me.
not what they're doing. That's not what they're doing. The people who are marching and doing the convoy with them are marching right next to people who are neo-Nazis. I have a problem with that. Because for me, if I see that you're comfortable standing next to a neo-Nazi at the same protest, then I'm going to think there's something wrong with you. And that even though you're not outwardly racist, or you may not think you're racist, the fact that you think it's okay to be anti-Semitic, to be anti-Black, to be anti-gay, to be that kind of neo-Nazi, I'm going to think that you are okay with those values. They may not be your values, but if you're standing right next to them, I'm going to think that you're okay with those values. To the point where you're saying, this is not the protest for you, we don't spread hate at this protest, we're protesting the vaccine, then I'm going to associate you with someone who is okay with Nazi ideology, with racist ideas, and anti-Semitic thoughts and actions.
And again, that is your perception of the event. Again, if you were the one, or I was the one, or Sean was the one organizing it, we would ask them to separate. I'm not going to tell them that they can't protest whatever they want. Granted, we're there talking about the vaccine mandate. I don't care whoever else comes to protest to use that coverage for their platform. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean I agree with everybody. So I have a big protest that I organized, right? And I got the news there and everybody else. And Planned Parenthood comes and starts protesting that they should have the right to do what they want with their body. And the neo-Nazis show up. And Black Lives Matter shows up. Should I kick them all out because we're here to talk about the vaccine? No.
Are you really
I'm going
comparing?
to ask law enforcement to separate us all to make sure that we're safe. They have a right
really
to
comparing?
protest and say what they want. They're not
Are
free of
you really
consequences.
comparing?
Okay,
Planned Parenthood?
I've got something here, but I'll let you finish it. Go ahead. I've got something.
Are you really comparing Planned Parenthood and Black Lives Matters? Are you trying to equate
No, I just
Planned
grabbed some
Parenthood
random names.
and Black
Planned
Lives
Parenthood, Black
Matter
Lives Matters,
to
and neo-Nazis.
neo-Nazis?
No, that's you making an assumption.
That's not making an
grabbed three
assumption.
names. I just grabbed 3 names out of thin air. It could be Greenpeace for all I give a shit. They could be protesting the whale killings in Japan. I don't care. They have a right to say what they want.
So they
don't have a right to interfere with my protest, though, and I don't have a right to interfere with theirs.
But they are interfering with the protest. That's the thing. They're right there in the middle. But
Just because they're right there, that doesn't mean they're actually interfering. If they're physically taking over the protest, if they're physically stopping the trucks from what they're supposed to do, if someone's on the news in Canada talking about the vaccines and they shove them out of the way and start talking about how we're anti-Semitic and racist and everything else, that is interfering. Standing over in the corner and talking a bunch of shit, that's not interfering. That just shows how ignorant they are.
So let's go to Sean.
2 points. Okay, so Occupy Wall Street, which is past somebody's period of time, but that was a profound thing because everything after that is being simulated now. And Occupy Wall Street had an interesting scenario that came out of it. And that's what Wade's kind of on the peripheral on. And the point is this: if law enforcement is independent, which it's not, it answers to officials. It answers to the government. So if the government's corrupt, then these are the enforcers of a corrupt government. If you believe that, right? So the police are not independent. You can't trust the police if they are part of the corruption of the actual system. And in Occupy Wall Street, they made that point because they went against, bankers, and they went to their homes and they protested all these, economic aspects of life, and they were forcibly removed. Remember, they were forcibly removed by police. And another example of that here in the U.S. would be obviously the pipelines on Native American soil, which the Native Americans said we did not want the pipelines built on our land, reservation land, not U.S. land brought by treaty. And they were forced by force of our military off the protest, and the pipelines were built, even though the Native Americans said it's on our land and you cannot build it. So that defies some of the logic you just put out right there in the U.S. situation. Now, the Canadian situation, the Canadians, they're live and let live type individuals. So they're actually putting a different politics in Canada that's never existed in a long period of time. This type of politics that's going on. It's kind of a U.S. politics that they're putting into Canada right now. Like that protest is very U.S. strategy, because it's a politics of division. So you have a small majority that's very loud. It has a certain part of support in Canada, and then you have a controlling class there, which is Trudeau, which is more of the democratic liberal space of Canada. So if we're talking about real protests, just like we did with Black Lives Matters and all that, then we get into political aspects. Protests, they don't just happen, Okay, so if there's funding behind it, there's money behind it, then we're having a political movement, not a protest. What you're having, just like Occupy Wall Street was, is a political movement, not a protest. It was a series of protests put into different areas to create a political movement out of it. And that's what you got going on in Canada. They're looking to create political movement initially there. This is the beginning of a political movement that may be a conservative political movement. It's hard to tell exactly where that is, it conservative or not conservative, but it's also it's obviously all at once having huge, major conservative figures embracing it that are not Canadian. Like they have nothing to do with Canada. They have nothing to do with Canada. They're U.S. people saying that's cool. It's happening in another country. And, we're supporting it, which means to me that there's probably interconnectivity and communication among that whole system to create that. And that is a political movement, my friends. And the protests that started, even with Black Lives Matter, later did get politicized. And Black Lives Matter did begin to get people elected into office as well. And on the other end, the conservative movements also got people elected into office as well. So that are not protests. Those are organized, very organized political movements. And that's what you have going on in Canada, not a protest.
That's an interesting way to look. That's an interesting perspective. I like it.
So let's go ahead and go to the comments.
There's a shit ton of comments.
I know we're gonna be here for a while. So Lindsay says people going to learn real quick not to piss off truckers. Marwood from Smoke and Bacon says, "Why would you even think it would be random? It's about our freedom." Las Vegas Luddite from Smoke and Bacon app says, "I agree. Convoys are vastly more damaging than setting our cities on fire and murdering citizens." Marwood from Smoke and Bacon also says, he says, "I heard they have enough funding to stay in Ottawa for up to 2 years. But they're not getting the money. That's the issue." Lindsay says, "Truckers' communication is far more efficient than social media." It is. Marwood from Smoke and Bacon says, "That's not the point. The point is our freedom." Marwood, also from Smoke and Bacon, says, "That little bitch Trudeau went into hiding cleaning. Oh, I have COVID." So he does have COVID, but he did leave Ottawa. So he had COVID, staying at home. Him and his family actually left his house in Ottawa because for safety reasons. Las Vegas Luddite from Smoke and Bacon says, "What's the next play? If the truckers win, how long until the leftist big tech spin up driverless and drone deliveries?" Oh, they're already doing it. It's already there. Walmart actually has driverless truckers going between various stores in the South, but they're test stores, right, Wade? Sean, Is there like their test stores?
Yeah, they're tests, but they're active. I mean, they're
active. Yeah, they're
delivering.
active.
They're actually delivering. Yeah.
So Lindsay says truckers have been the backbone and that pull people through a global lockdown, and they're essentially being held down by a mandatory vaccine or mask requirement by delaying them via quarantine delays their livelihood. If someone has funded them privately to host this standoff to make a point, then I support them. Marwood from Smoke and Bacon says, "Man, Mel needs to be red pilled." I'm okay. I don't take no pills. Las Vegas Luddite from Smoke and Bacon app says the same thing. Are the truckers murdering people or burning people's businesses or apartment buildings? No one was murdering people in those protests. Actually, the only person who murdered someone during those protests was Rittenhouse.
Look around and find out, champion.
What happened? Now,
I said, fuck around and find out, champion.
So Marwood from Smoke and Bacon also says it's all because of the tyrannical government and their illegitimate COVID bullshit. So I want to talk about this right now. So if we look in the history of the United States, this is nothing tyrannical going on. This is precedent that has been set. This has been law put in place since smallpox. Jacobson versus Massachusetts essentially deems that governments have the right to put vaccine mandates in place. This is something that has been here longer than all of us. Everyone listening, everyone watching, us on the station have been alive. Now, I know many people, especially in the United States, saying that it's tyrannical, that it's un-American, that we don't do this. Yes, we do. This is something that is very American, vaccine mandates. And I'm going to tell you right now, the vaccine mandates that we are seeing right now are actually easier than what we saw with Jacobson versus Massachusetts, because they're allowing people not to actually get the vaccine. Any type of mandate that's put in place is essentially saying, except for some healthcare, I know that one, but is basically saying get vaccinated or quarantine. Like with this mandate that's happening at the border, I know it's happening on the Canadian side, but the U.S. has a similar law. It's not as strict as the Canadian one. It's basically saying you have to quarantine. You can still move it in and out, just quarantine when you get in.
For 2 weeks.
Jacobson versus Massachusetts. It literally said that the government has the right to do this. There are precedents set already. So again, you may be upset about it.
Clarification, they didn't say the government. They said that the governor of a state has the right and the ability to ensure the safety of his people.
Yes.
Okay, so clarification.
Wait, what is a governor? What is he part of?
A puppet.
He is part of the government.
So, but clarification, because when you say government, people could misconstrue that to being the president, the Congress, everybody else. But in reality, it is the governor. The governor of every state is empowered with the responsibility of ensuring the safety of the people under his care. And that's where that comes in. So that leads to the fact that one governor could say you're going to do this, and one governor can say screw off. So
exactly. But it's not un-American. So
but that's only on the American side. That has nothing to do with Canada.
But the protest is moving to America. You know it's coming. From California to DC is coming in the next couple of weeks.
But we're talking about Canada right now. Right now, we're talking about Canada. And that raises another interesting fact. If I'm a trucker and I drive through California, do I fall under that governor's mandate?
Yes.
But my truck is registered somewhere else, just like a boat.
If I drive to Virginia, do I fall under Virginia law?
Okay, I'll give you that one. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So Marwood also says it has to do with the global reset. Lindsay says, I work in trucking. This has been a high tension for a few days in my department because this will affect us in the U.S. and soon. It really will. Marwood says from Smoke and Bacon, in 3 to 5 years, we'll see a massive die-off of people that have underlying problems because of this gene therapy fake vaccine. Marwood from Smoke and Bacon also says we'll need self-driving trucks. They are here. Las Vegas Luddite says, I keep hearing about the neo-Nazis involved, but I haven't found any footage. I'll see if I can pull some up for you. It's probably on TikTok. There was a lot happening on TikTok. So
TikTok is the pinnacle of news lately, and honestly,
actually, I'm actually yes. You know, I knew I knew there was a convoy, I knew something big was about to happen with truckings, I think a month and a half ago. So right when, it was less than a month ago, it was right after so January 15th, it was right after the mandate was put in place. This trucker was upset and he made a TikTok video and it exploded. And I knew something was going to happen with the trucking industry from watching that TikTok. So actually TikTok is,
I'm agreeing with you. You know, usually we joke around that it's not real till it's Facebook official, or people go to Facebook to get their news and most of it's fake. But in reality, TikTok is just a video. If they're putting up videos, they're honestly more accurate than most of our news sources right now because they're just recording and posting. That is a sad statement.
I agree, like 100%. So I'm going to skip down because we do need to get through some of these comments. Joanna says, I agree, Wade, as long as they do not no harm. Marwood from Smoke and Bacon says, free speech. I get it, Wade, but it seems Mel should read the Constitution. It's called free speech. Yes.
Only in America.
You have free speech in the Constitution, but you also have hate crimes in the Constitution as well. And I say this time and time again, that I don't have to support what you're protesting, but I support you protesting. You can put out hateful rhetoric, but at a certain point, you actually can't. There's freedom of oppression from the government, right? You're going to have consequences. I don't see why people, whenever I bring this up, people pull up freedom of speech. Freedom of speech protects you from the government, not consequences. So yes, having someone come into a protest being neo-Nazis and having people in the protest ask them to leave has nothing to do with freedom of speech. And again, I know,
but it's also not a hate crime.
But when I'm saying it has nothing to do with freedom,
the definition of a hate crime is typically one involving violence that is motivated by prejudice on the basis of race, religion, or sexual orientation.
Yes, that is a hate crime. But what I'm saying is, if I saw you in a crowd, I'm going to tell you right now. Let's say that I'm counter protesting, I say something that you're protesting, and I see you standing calmly next to a neo-Nazi, and you guys are protesting about the vaccine mandates, and you're right next to the neo-Nazi, and you don't have a problem that you're right next to the neo-Nazi. I'm going to look at you as someone who has a problem because you feel so comfortable protesting and allowing someone like that into your space. The leaders of the convoy.
I agree with them. It means that we're both on the same side for a change. Now, let me twist this for you for a second. I'm gonna twist it for you. Westboro Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You and I both know that they hate anybody that is outside of the biblical marriage standard. One man, one woman. Do they have a right to protest?
Yes.
Do they have a right to show up at a LGBTQ event and protest?
Yes.
Okay. Do they have the right to say that everyone should burn that doesn't believe in them?
They have the right, but I would tell so here's the difference, Wade. Here's what I'm telling you. And here's what I'm saying. And then we're going to go back to the comments because we're never going to.
I quit Westboro Baptist Church with neo-Nazis.
But here's my last.
They have the right.
If you and a neo-Nazi were protesting the vaccine mandates together, but he was not wearing neo-Nazi paraphernalia, no problem. By putting on a swastika, by bringing a swastika flag, by doing the hail, I'm not even going to do it because it's the internet. Someone's going to screenshot that and say that.
Oh yeah, you're screwed. You get a photo of that, you're done.
So yeah, if that's the difference. If someone is a neo-Nazi and they're at a protest and they're wearing jeans and a t-shirt, if someone is coming into a protest with neo-Nazi paraphernalia, wearing neo-Nazi clothing and all of that, that is the problem that I have. And the fact that people are accepting them to be in the same space as them, that's the issue. Because literally the leader could be like, listen, buddy, we want you here protesting with us, but you got to put that flag down. You can't do that salute. That's the difference. If you were next to someone and you're like, listen, this is not what this protest is about. I don't appreciate you bringing that hatred into the protest. You can be here next to me protesting, but you got to take off that SS armband. That's the difference. And the people who are
you're wrong.
protesting next to the neo-Nazis are not doing that.
I think you're wrong. I think you crossed the line when you told them they have to take off their stuff.
Like I said, we're going to disagree. So see, Philip says, Wade is right, Mel. Las Vegas Luddite says, I still can't find the footage of these Nazis. I will look it up. I'll look it up. Deborah says, Mel, please clarify. Do the group protesting have to get a permit to protest? If so, then they got to go. If not, the law enforcement should be contacted to ask them to separate the group. No, there's no permits. They're literally blocking the border. They're not allowing people to go back and forth on the border.
I think she's referring to the neo-Nazis in Canada. I'm not sure that the same rules apply for like a permit. Do we know if that exists?
So but there's no permit. Like technically, the protest that is happening in Alberta is illegal.
It's not an approved protest. Yeah,
it's not. So yeah.
But is that the policy for Canada? That would be the policy here.
But it's literally coming out.
I'm going to say something about this for a minute, because I think you're thinking that Canada operates like super different than the U.S. and it really does not.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it really does not. I can state that differently. What it does have is a far different mentality. So this is very foreign to Canadians, what's going on here, because it's a U.S. tactic, I would say a political U.S. tactic, which is playing on something that's creating this, great emotional reaction. And they're taking money from outside Canada. So that's pretty interesting, right? They're not taking money just from Canadians. They're taking money from outside Canada. And Canadians have this way of live and let live about their society more than we do in the U.S. Like, they don't get into these heated political arguments. Maybe it's happening more now because of the U.S. influence, but they mostly are more live and let live type individuals than we are here in the U.S. and oftentimes called more civil. Like, Canadians are more civil than U.S. people. But I mean, I think this is an obvious political move. The political move is to get that current administration and the current supporter of that administration out of office. If I'm wrong on that, let's see how it plays out, because I think they're going to go directly after him and his actual party. So they're trying to get his party out of office, which means they will replace a liberal Democratic Party with a conservative party in Canada. And that's pretty simple for me to figure out. And I think everybody should say, okay, so they're all emotionally playing the actual trucker thing and all that. I think that's wonderful. I have family that are truckers, people that are in that, and I'm self-employed, and I'm all for that of free enterprise and having your own business and doing all those things. But to confuse this with saying that is about their individual rights and there's not a bigger cause here, I'm just not buying that one.
Okay.
Let's go. So I want to go to this comment. So Lindsay says, we all morally have a problem with it, but if said trucker isn't the organizer, what the fuck can they do about it without causing a violent outcome? I'm going to tell you, because I've been to many protests, and when there's something that happens in the crowd that the organizers don't like, they literally get on the loudspeaker and says, no, we're not doing that today. This is not what we're doing. Organizers do that all the time. Now, this is a long convoy. The moment that an organizer heard that there was neo-Nazi paraphernalia going around, if they truly had a problem with it, everyone's in their trucks. Hey, this is Big John. We're getting word from the organizer that we don't want any neo-Nazi paraphernalia. It's taken away from the message and the media is spinning it. So right now, if you have any neo-Nazi paraphernalia, could you please remove that from your truck, from your personal flags, anything that's going around? Thank you. And then it goes down the trucking line.
Okay, that's not great. Happening. But nobody says that they have to do it.
But that's not happening. That's not happening.
Were you there? Do you know? Are you part of the organization? Do you know that those conversations have been held, or are you making that assumption based off of?
Wait, I am making that assumption.
Nothing came out in the news.
I am making that assumption 100% correct, because I've watched the live streams, I've been watching the videos, I've been watching the news. I'm not even trying to pull information from major news organizations. I'm gonna tell you right now, with what's going on, I don't want to watch the news about this, because the news is going to spin it. If you watch Fox, they're going to spin it one way. If you watch CNN, they're going to spin it one way. What I'm watching is actual people on the street. I'm watching the live streams. I'm watching the truckers. I'm watching the actual things going on. And that's all I'm saying.
But you're still not a part of the conversations in the background.
I'm not part of the conversations. But literally, If that conversation happened, it would be everywhere. The same way whenever all these other things happen, it would. Because a trucker would tweet, they would start putting it on, someone would tweet, someone would go on TikTok saying, hey, you know, right now we're trying to do this. If the conversation happened, it would be a bigger conversation. Because as the left-wing media comes out and says it, truckers would be like, listen, I know this is what the left-wing media is saying, but we have asked them to take down the neo-Nazis. The conversation would happen. Because the left-wing media is making such a big deal about it, if that conversation happened from the organizers, the information would be out there and be spreading like wildfire because they'd want to own the libs. Am I not right?
The only reason you would have major media involved in this, major media, that was mass media that had one particular view or another, means that we do have a political movement and not a protest. That just makes it simple for me. Like, okay, yeah. So Fox is very interested in it. Well, why are they interested in it?
Fox, the entertainment company.
Why are they interested in it? Right? Okay, so they're making the fire. It's kind of like what people out there thinking that our previous administration was hated by the media, when the media made billions and billions of dollars off of him and keeps making billions and billions of dollars off of him. Kind of ridiculous.
All right, so I'm going to go to
that sensationalism.
So I just saw the time. I did not realize that we were talking about this. Let me go to a couple of comments. Thank you, Sean. That's what I couldn't find the words pointed out. It's not a protest. It's a political movement. I do agree 100% that it is a political movement. So good job calling that out. Deborah says, tell him, Mel. Thank you so much. Lindsay says, like I said, truckers are the worst. Social media crybaby. CB radio, baby. Let's see. Amanda says, Westboro Baptist shirts are the bane of my existence. Yo también.
Did you see the comment I put in there in regards to the Canadian Bill of Rights? I think that's important to read. Don't skip over that one, please.
That is like the equivalent of our Bill of Rights?
Yes.
And pretty much the same thing? Mm-hmm. Wait, I mean, Sean already said that.
Don't skip over it.
Sean, we have to move on. The show's almost over, and we're going to talk quickly about 2 other topics. Deborah says, just can't with Wade tonight. Good night. Good night, Deborah. Amanda says, I remember when Mel got sprayed with pepper spray because they didn't want people to protest. That shit burns. That did burn. All I was doing was media. I was filming. It wasn't this badge. And they pepper sprayed me and my camera. My press badge. I had my press badge in DC covering the protest, and they pepper sprayed me.
That's bullshit.
It was bullshit. I have it on camera.
That's bullshit.
So thanks for remembering that, Amanda. So let's go to another topic. So right now, and we're only going to talk about this quickly because the show is pretty much over. I did not realize we were talking about this so long. I apologize, guys. I know there's a lot to reach. So right now, international diplomatic efforts are trying to squash the tension between Russia and Ukraine. Now, we all know there's always going to be tension between the two countries because of their history. And because Putin does not see Ukraine as an independent nation, he thinks that is still part of Russia. So U.S. Secretary of State, Blinken spoke with the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had a discussion with the Ukrainian President Zelensky. And essentially, they're trying to keep the tensions down so we don't go into an all-out war, World War III conflict, whatever you want to call it. They're trying to keep things peaceful. Blinken stated, emphasis that further invasion of Ukraine will be met with swift and severe consequences, and urges Russia to pursue a diplomatic path. So everyone is trying to get Russia to be diplomatic about this. So we'll go to Sean first. Sean, what are your thoughts about the U.S. and the UK trying to be diplomatic and bring these talks to the table?
I'm going to gauge this as whether or not this is something real or not by if this occurs. I don't know if people remember, not too long ago, there was a live assassination of a diplomat, of a shooting. Didn't happen, and it ended up being on mass media in the U.S., but it was in Europe. It was a shooting and I'm sure that was Ukraine or that area, Serbia. But, you know, he came in, shot him in the back, and it was all over the mass media everywhere. If we actually have a real potential war with that, we'll see assassinations come. we'll see diplomatic assassinations, or we will see something along that lines that will get out into the media. And then we actually do have potential for war. Other than that, this is them jogging for energy. This is what it is.
Can you
Man,
break
that sounds
down a
like
little bit
World
more?
War III. That just sounds like World War. Like if it's diplomatic assassinations, that's World War.
Yeah, can you break that down a little bit more? Are you talking about some James Bond shit where we're going to be taking out ambassadors in each other's countries?
No, this has happened. This happens in Eastern Europe.
World War. Yeah, like
no, this has happened before. I mean, it's not even a couple of years ago it happened. Yeah, I mean, Russia literally poisoned one of their people against Putin. He was sent to Germany to recover. Don't forget that. He was
the guy that had the radioactive whatever they gave him that killed him. Yeah,
he was poisoned. That's a form of assassination. Yeah.
So you think that? And I'm not going to say that there isn't, because there is all sorts of sleeper agents in the U.S. We are like sleeper agent headquarters because we all fight about people having rights to do things and come here, but we don't actually vet anybody truly. So we have all sorts of sleeper cells. With that being said, are you thinking that if we go to war, that these sleeper cells are going to activate and start assassinating people? Is that what your thought is?
Okay. There are probably people in Russia that would like war. There are probably people that would like war. Doesn't mean that Putin would like war, but there may be fractions in Russia that would like war. So if they want to start war, they could do it by assassination. Like if they targeted or assassinated either a U.S. or a European diplomat, that would be just like historically caused World War before. It's caused World War. It was the breaking point of causing World War in Europe. And Europeans were very touchy about that. If you were to do that to a UK diplomat, to a German diplomat, to any of those, and they say that it directly comes from or was carried out by a Russian official or Russian approval, we have war. Yeah, we do definitely have war, or definitely the potential of war, if that were to occur. So I'm using that as a gauge. That's a big gauge, though, because that's a really big act.
We're talking about a big step of, hey, so-and-so activate and kill so-and-so.
Yeah, an order would have to be given. An order would have to be given either within a fraction or, there's some order that have to be given or a fraction within that. Doesn't mean that Putin would approve of it, but if it happens, he would be in the seat of it. He would have to deal with the fallout. He would have to deal with the fallout. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So on the other end, what Russia would obviously do, like they did with Poland, because they invaded Poland many times, is their intention to actually just change the government there, just shift the government and get one of their lackeys or their people in to control the government, or get more control over the political parliament aspect of the Ukraine, so that they favor more Russia than the U.S. And so we got a West area. I mean, the thing that Russia has to remember is that Rocky won. So,
but Americans aren't clean in this either. Americans ain't clean in this either. Remember Castro? We sent people to kill Fidel Castro. We tried to assassinate him and failed multiple times because that guy had the luck of the charmed. All right, not just us. Other countries tried to assassinate him too. I think it was like 15 or 16 times people tried to assassinate him, and he wiggled out each time.
Don.
Forget
God, he is the real Teflon Don.
But we did assassinate Shaky Vada. We did assassinate him. So we got to him, which was probably even now one of a bigger, much more loved entity in Latin America than any other than Fidel Castro is.
So we've done it too. So
by the way,
all of it, Sean's right. All of it goes back to changing the political environment. If you take out a country's leader and put somebody in that is agreeable with your policies, it's beneficial to you.
And it's a lot less money, than war. Yeah.
So I want to say two things. One has nothing to do with the topic, but the United States has been doing that for decades in Latin America. And because you brought up Cuba, so the islands as well, is that basically they destabilize governments, they cause conflict amongst the people, and then they put their own people in place. Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to make this right here, that Russia has been trying to do this to us. The Russian bots, you know how everyone was talking about, oh, Russia put Trump in office, It's kind of true, but not the way that people were thinking it. Russian bots have been trying to divide the American people on social media. So when the election did happen between Hillary Clinton and President Trump, before he was President Trump, there was a lot of Russian bots running things against Hillary and whatnot. And it wasn't necessarily to put Donald Trump into office, but to divide America so America wouldn't be as strong as it was. And essentially that's what happened. Because when you dig deeper into the Russian bots, you'll see that there's Russian bots on both sides. There's Russian bots who have very far right views, and there's Russian bots that have very far left views. And it's not to swing the political party anyway. It just happened that Trump was there, and that's why, the Russian involvement, but it's to divide the country. So that's the first point I wanted to make, because we were talking about that. The second point is I do agree with what Sean's saying with assassination. My thoughts about war from the beginning is if we do go to war, it's going to be by accident, right? It's going to be by accident. Someone's going to move wrong and it's going to start some type of conflict. So when I say that it's going to be by accident, it could be purposely by someone lower in government in Russia, or an assassination, like Sean's saying, or something on the border where someone moves wrong, someone thinks they saw something. Essentially like a Bay of Pigs type of thing.
I'm going to go with the border. It's the most likely incident, the match that starts it, because somebody's going to think that somebody crossed the border and fired to protect their sovereign territory, and that's going to start it, in my opinion.
And because Russia is running drills at the border. They're running drills, so I think it's a big possibility. So whether it's not going to be Putin saying, now let's invade now. But I do think that there is still a big possibility that we're going to war, and it's not going to be the way that a lot of people are thinking, because there's just a lot of tension. So I do think it could be someone lower in the political sphere saying to assassinate somebody, or it's going to be something at the border where something just goes wrong, Bay of Pig style. You know what I mean? So that's my thoughts. Anyone want to rebuttal that? Wade? Rebuttaling everything I say tonight.
I'm willing to go with the bet that somebody gives somebody an order to move 10 feet up to purposely start the war, accidentally on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was an interesting interview by one of our main diplomats there that I watched on NPR, and he made a really interesting statement. It was like a power statement. He said about the gas line that was going between Germany and Russia. It's not currently active, but he said, I guarantee you that it will not be active if they invade Ukraine. But that's really interesting because he's talking about a foreign country, Germany, when they're the U.S. So the U.S. is saying to Germany, you will not get that pipeline if Russia invades Ukraine, because it's two countries, right? That's a big economic exchange of money there, natural resources, and a huge, huge business deal for both ends, the German side as well as the Russian side. And when our officials say directly to an EU country that you're not going to be able to do that business because we said you cannot do it, that is a remarkable statement. It's a really remarkable statement without having a German person agree with it or a German government official agree with it. The only way I think he could make a kind of statement like that is that he has an underground agreement with Germany, and Germany is saying that, because after that, you would think that Germany would come out and go, what are you doing speaking for us? Like, you're speaking for our country. You don't have the deal with Russia. We have the deal with Russia. So I found that really, really profound. And there must be talks that are really not getting out in the media, or diplomatic talks between Germany and the U.S. and that got slipped out in that interview, because that's a really harsh statement to say. it's a really strong statement.
So just out of curiosity, does the gas line that runs from Germany to Russia, does it cross through the Ukraine? Because you've got Poland and, I'm going to screw this up, but Belarus. Yeah. So you've got those two countries and the Ukraine in between Germany and Russia. Does the gas line go through the Ukraine? And the reason I ask is because if it does, Belarus, thank you, Las Vegas. If it does, Ukraine could turn off the gas to Russia. So if you take over Ukraine, that stops that.
That would just cause bigger conflict.
Russia has a habit of turning off resource lines to other countries.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's threatening to do it to Russia too. They're saying there's a lot of threats going out to Russia. They're really trying to keep Russia from invading. There's a lot of sanctions that they're talking about putting in place if they do cross it and try and invade.
See, now I want to find a map of the world gas lines, because we all know that Ukraine is highly, no, that's the wrong term, that they're extremely rich in natural resources in the trillions of dollars. I mean, Ukraine could become a serious powerhouse just in their resources alone. So if Russia acquires Ukraine, which is the polite way of saying taking over, then they gain those resources.
Yes, and that's part of the reason why there's a lot of reasons why Russia wants the Ukraine. National resources, they believe that the Ukraine is still a part of Russia in Putin's warped mind. I'm going to go ahead and pull these comments up because we do have one more topic to talk about. So Amanda says, there are people in America who would like war too, Sean. I hope we don't, though. Lindsay says, if a group wanted to cause mayhem and chaos, and assassinations would be likely. Joanna says, I don't think we will see World War III in this lifetime. I believe there will be assassinations like Son mentioned earlier. So Lindsay says, I mean, come on, how many movies have had the same scenario played out? LOL, Red October for one for me, LOL. Amanda says, if this drags on and Biden doesn't take the 2024 election, I wouldn't put it past Trump to put us in World War III if with his mouth alone. Marwood says, that's what the left lives for is war. So, and this is him coming from the Smoke and Bacon app. Hasn't the left really been traditionally against war? Like, whenever we go to war, isn't usually like liberals who are protesting against war?
Well, you got to define who's been on the left. Give me some names.
No. So what I'm saying is, Marwood says that's what the left lives for is war. I can't remember the last war started by someone on the left, a liberal in the United States. Can someone?
Well, what are some names of some of the liberals?
There's been conflicts. There's been conflicts.
There's been conflicts, but not all out war. Like,
yeah,
I feel like all the wars in modern era that was right. Right? Am I wrong? Do you want to pull that up for me, Wade?
I don't even know what to look for, but sure, I'll pull it up.
Well, you have the Afghanistan, you have Iraq, right?
That was Bush.
Yeah, so those are the more recent, but you go back farther. You have the Bay of Pigs under Kennedy.
Bay of Pigs.
Now, I will say this: the left have been involved in creating conflict in Latin America.
Yes.
And they have been involved in creating all-out wars in Latin America. That's a hard statement I just made, but because they do actually they supported dictators, and I mean literally, and brought people out of government and put them back in, and that has happened under liberal presidents as well as conservative though.
But like I wouldn't say that liberals love war. I wouldn't say that liberals love getting into wars, right? So there's conflicts, like Sean's saying, where we're not really that involved. Well, don't get me wrong. Like Sean said, liberal presidents will cause wars in other places, but they don't really take us into war, where the United States is actually at war with somebody.
They take other countries into war.
Yeah.
They're good at that.
So who was Truman? Was he left or right? So Truman took us into the Korean War, but was he left or right? Anybody know? Okay. The Vietnam era, Lyndon B. Johnson, was he left or right? I mean, I've got a list of wars and the presidents who put them up there, but they don't have the political affiliation.
I'm going to pull this up for you and let me see.
I think you can ask the general question: how many conservative or Republican presidents have what wars?
Truman. So Truman was a Democrat.
So that make him left or right?
48 left. 48, which is so 48 Democrat. So for the year he was elected was 48. And then
I have something to say about that analogy between Democrats in the past and Republicans in the past. But yes.
Go ahead.
So what about?
Yeah, I mean, the analogy, like if I were to talk to people that grew up in the 60s and they say that Kennedy was a very liberal president, and they say that compared to what liberalism is today, Kennedy would be quite conservative.
He'd be
more on the conservative realm of what Kennedy was, even though that's not popular to the conservatives today. But they, if they look at it in the books and they look at the way his policies were, they weren't extremely left or extremely liberal either. I mean, he was going to go to war in Cuba. I mean, so he was pretty aggressive with the Soviet Union. Of course, he was assassinated. His brother was assassinated, and almost his whole family was assassinated. Or anybody that could have been potentially president in his family was assassinated. We America like look at that. Like I talked about assassinations. Oh no, we've got a history of assassination.
Yeah, we do.
So I mean, as you look at it, there might be one or two in the past of wars that were in the Democratic Party. But I would say that Democrats of the 1940s, the 1950s, and 1960s, and Democrats of today are very different animals, just like Republicans of the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, different animals. And even if we go really far back with Democrats were really late, supporters of slavery. So, they were slave owners. They were the Southern Democrat, and they were. So you see the Great Divide. Really, the Great Divide in the parties hit in the Civil Rights Movement. That's when the divide of the parties start to change during the civil rights space in the U.S. We see to see something more profound between Democrats and Republicans, even though there are gradations. Like, I mean, there's far right and there's far left, right? And then there's the moderates. And then what we got right now is a moderate Democratic president run by moderate Democrats. And so, what's interesting about that to me, and I'll state with that, is they both greatly approve the defense budget with no argument. In fact, they when the Pentagon asked for money, they said, "How much more can you need? Because I mean, I know you only asked for this, but we'll give you even more, Pentagon." We won't give you healthcare, America, but we'll give you Pentagon. I know you didn't ask for that much money, but we're going to give you even more money. We'll give you even more. And then both Republicans and Democrats agree on it.
The one thing they do. All right, so let's go to some of these comments. This one had me laughing. Amanda says, USA are the family members who go to Thanksgiving and ask their aunties where her husband went, LOL. Lindsay says, accidentally on purpose. Amanda says, exactly, LOL. Wade said, this is from Marwood on the Smoke and Bacon app. So just for reference out there, we broadcast on the Smoke and Bacon app, which you guys should download. However, the comments do not come through, so Wade pulls the comments out for us. So Marwood on the Smoke and Bacon app says, and that's what Obama did with Ukraine in 14 and 15. Ukraine was divided east and west. Obama helped set up the democratic government, and now Russia sees there's opportunity to take it back. Didn't the Obama administration calm the past Russia-Ukraine conflict? That was under Obama. Just throwing that out there too.
Hell, I thought it was Georgia.
You thought it was Georgia?
Yeah. Didn't they deal with Georgia?
Because Ukraine.
I think he's right. I think Wade's right on that.
What'd you say, Sean?
I think Wade is right. It's Georgia.
It's Georgia? Because Ukraine and Russia had conflict. So who was president when Ukraine and Russia had issues last time?
It could have been both, but Georgia was definitely also in that area.
Yeah.
We'd have to look it up.
We have to pull it up. Wait. Wade, my fact checker. Las Vegas Led Eye on the Smoke and Bacon app says Belarus. Oh, just showing you how to pronounce it. Good job. Las Vegas Led Eye says reach out to Hunter for that map smoke.
I'm assuming he means Hunter Biden. So, the Russo-Georgian War was October 1st, 2008 to October 12th, 2008.
Can you look up?
Like
can you
11 days?
Yeah. Can you look up the previous Russia-Ukraine conflict
Mm-hmm.
and who was president at that time? Amanda says the first was left. Las Vegas Led Eye from the Smoke and Bacon app says define war. For the strict legal definition, Mel is right. The people of Yugoslavia might remember things differently. Yeah. And I think that's when Sean came in with the conflict. So yeah. Las Vegas Led Eye on the Smoke and Bacon app says, God damn, man, land the fucking plane, please.
So February and March of 2014 is the Russia-Ukraine first fight.
It was Obama. Yeah, Obama squashed it.
So he had to deal with Ukraine and Georgia.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
both. Yeah.
So
Yeah, because I remember John McCain was really big in that issue.
yeah, he was.
He was really, that was a big issue for John McCain.
He's still alive.
No, he's passed.
No, he
Okay.
passed. So Lindsay says, Sean, make me remember why I find political history so interesting, especially in the past 100 years. The vast changes is astonishing. Amanda.
Battery exhausted. That she's not coming back on that one.
Amanda says, didn't Osama get killed due to Obama and Republicans?
There was this.
wanted
We
his
just
head?
saw it. We just saw an assassination, like a
Yeah.
video assassination.
Well, no, Osama got killed because he decided to blow up the World Trade Centers, and we needed to take revenge, and it was a sweet, sweet revenge, dragging him out of a hole in the middle of the
Did
desert.
someone get killed due to Obama and the Republicans wanted his head? Okay.
So, I'm sure Mel will be back in a few minutes. She's running for a cord.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the political theater of the killing of Osama was really strange when they did it, because they broadcast it from the actual situation room and then just watched the reactions on people's faces. Like, we didn't see what was going on down there, but we just watched reactions on that. That was some major political theater there.
So what I find amusing about that is that not only did we broadcast it from the Situation Room, we released specifically information on a classified aircraft that was involved in it, but we chose to hide where we dumped the body to prevent it from becoming a site for people to pilgrimage to under martyrdom, making him a martyr.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, extra batteries. Yeah. So we release information, documents, photos, drawings of a extremely classified piece of aircraft, but we won't tell you where we dumped his body in the ocean.
It's interesting. We'll learn about it in 50 years. We'll learn what really happened in 50 years when things get declassified. So let's see. Marwood on the Smoke and Bacon app says it all goes back to Hunter's laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay's doing the laughing face. Las Vegas Luddite says, so how many of these boys are still alive?
Which guys, Las Vegas? But he did also say that was the drone taking you out. Because anytime you start talking about some good stuff, you get knocked off. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I agree. But this one wasn't them knocking me off this time. This was I don't know. I'm gonna have to get a new cord for the studio setup. It's just not working. So I had to go to the hundreds of batteries that I have.
Oh, the SEAL Team Osama crew. Well, there's a whole conspiracy theory about that out there, Las Vegas, because a lot of them poor boys aren't alive anymore.
We'll save the conspiracy theory for another night because we are over time. We're going to talk about one last topic very quickly, and this is going to go very quickly. So 2 officers were shot and killed at Bridgewater College. A 27-year-old man has been charged. Virginia man. He's from Ashland, Virginia. So essentially what happened was 2 officers were shot and killed when there was an active shooter on campus. The shooter's name was Alex Wyatt Campbell, and he's been charged with 4 felonies. So what are your guys' thoughts about this recent shooting on a college campus? By the way, so today there was a shooting on a college campus with the active shooter, and the past 2 days there's been bomb threats at HBCUs. So just putting it out there that we are dealing with some things happening in colleges. So Wade, what's your thoughts about the active shooter and the 2 police officers who've been shot and killed?
I'm surprised he made it into custody.
I am too.
I'm here to tell you, he would not have made it into custody if I was the officer chasing him.
Well, the thing is, you want to get them alive because you kind of want to hear why they did it, what happened, etc. When you kill them, I mean, but everyone else besides you cares.
No, I'm going to purposely aim for a position that would cause him to bleed out as slowly as possible, to drag it out as long as possible. And if I went to jail for it, I'd be okay with that.
And that's why you're not a law enforcement agent.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting that it was law enforcement that took the bullet, and they stopped the individual. So they did. I mean, they actually are heroes. They did their job. But it's also like maybe he went for that. Like he was intentional for that. Maybe it was a suicide thing he was trying to do, like make a statement and be killed. Because it seems like right away they knew he was there, and the police had him. So he wasn't getting civilians or students or anything like that. So that's kind of fascinating. I find that kind of interesting. Like maybe inside information, or how did they know right away? They were able to respond to him right away, but then they actually lost their lives in the process. But in the same process, he did not harm actual, there was not actual people harmed. The officers were harmed, don't get me wrong. But I mean, that's what they're there to do. They're there to protect people, right? So that's their what their function is, not to die, but to protect people. And so that's interesting to me. Like, it's like it's not really successful. And that says something. Something that's unsuccessful. So, I mean, it's kind of putting a voice out there to other people that are mentally ill or something like, well, you might not be successful if you try it, so don't try it. It's kind of that, I feel for the family. I would be
whistling the Seven Dwarfs Whistle While You Work while I was stringing him up.
Okay, so we're going to move on because we are not going to get kicked off on any networks.
So, I mean,
that's what's going to kick off. Wait.
Look.
He's obviously.
If more than one person, let's say 2 people, saw you kill somebody, specifically a first responder, a veteran, a child, a mother, you don't need to waste our time in court.
I'm going to the comments now before we get canceled.
You're in legal trouble if you do it, though.
Hey, I will smile in jail.
So Amanda says his skin color helped him make it into custody. I mean, yeah,
What was he?
White.
Oh, okay, well.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all agree with that. I mean, I'm waiting for Marwood to disagree with me, but I do think that if you're white, you're more likely to make it into custody than if you're black.
That is a true fact, unless I was the officer, in which case.
Moving on. We're moving on. Lindsay says again, I need to fundraise for bail and legal fees. Yes, you do. Las Vegas Luddite on the Smoke and Bacon app says, I agree with Mel on this. We are a society that needs to figure out why seemingly good people are randomly breaking so evil, then hang him in the town square.
I don't disagree with him. I just went to the hanging before finding out because I don't care why.
I do think we need the information. So here's another reason why we need the information, right? So we need the information because the more and more information that we gather on these people who commit these kind of crimes, we can build profiles. And when we build profiles on them, we can start watching and making sure that we're catching them before the act happens. I think profiling is something that is really important. And we can
Did
see
you just say profiling's okay? you just said profiling was
profiles.
important.
You know, like
profiling's okay.
So you know, like profilers in the FBI, where they profile for against serial killers, and you know what I mean, Wade. Do not twist my words. Do not twist my words, homie. Lindsay says, if Wade were ever to become a big figure in politics and news, I demand he get a stage name to lessen my harassment. LOL. True story. So I'm going to tell you guys the true story. We're going to read these comments, and then we're going to jump off because it is getting late. True story. So when I'm in a relationship, I don't really post my relationships because I know I talk about topics that can be controversial sometimes. And I have been called the N-word. I have been called many slurs. I've had people in different languages, like because they think that I'm not going to be able to read it in different languages, talk about my appearance, call me crazy things, and I never ever want that for my spouse or not spouse.
Dare you say narcissist?
Who said narcissist?
You said the N-word, narcissist. You don't post.
I didn't say narcissist.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. So
I was really going in back of my head. I'm like, did I say narcissist? Did I talk about a narcissist?
No, you said the N-word, and I threw out narcissist for fun.
Okay, thank you. I was so confused.
It's okay. No, you can put down the first finger too. It's okay. I know you had the first two left. But you just use one. It's okay.
No, this is really what I do when I'm stressed. Is like the temple rub. No, I mean the N-word that racist people like to throw at black people. So also been called monkey several times, which is not as bad as the N-word. So
that's ballsy. I'd like to see that happen one time to see the result.
Of what?
Of you whooping that person's ass who called you a monkey.
Well, you know what? When I'm on air, I don't feed into it because it's, feeding the trolls, they come back. So I'll try and like either deal with it like very cleverly. If it's like live on air, I'll try to deal with it clever. Or if I have the assistant producer running one of those shows, I'll just have them block them. So it doesn't take away from the conversation. So let's see. Marwood from the Spoken Bacon app says they should also not let his name out to give him the glory. They already let his name out. Amanda says, let's stop people from being evil and then hang them in the town square. LOL. You guys are very big on this town square.
Hey, look, if you hang everybody in a public environment, you know what happens. Fuck around and find out.
Lindsay says that's a win-win. Las Vegas Lodi says bingo, Mel. Marwood says, really, Mel? I don't know. Like, I can't decide when you're going to disagree with me, but when you disagree with me, you come hard. So Lindsay says, oh my God, wait, stop it. Amanda says, ay Dios mío, Mel. Amanda said, I mean, these 3 man bun speaks volumes, Mel. Wait, do I have 3 men? Oh, it's kind of like
you have today. A man bun.
Yeah, I do. Marwood says, monkey midget porn. P.S. Yes, we own that website domain. LOL, laugh my ass off. So maybe they were just referring to the website. So guys, that is the show today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Does anyone have any last minute things they want to say about anything? Sean, Wade?
I think we solved all the world's problems in this one.
Oh my gosh, finally, we've been trying so hard. So
they just listen to us.
Yeah, people would just listen. I mean, right now we've been making a lot of doom and gloom predictions. So but that's the direction the world is going. So Las Vegas Luddite on the Smoke and Bacon app says, dude, I saw a midget Kate. Gonna put that one away. That's not how we're gonna end the show. Linda says it was a good night, and I do agree it was a good night. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Power Hour. We come live every single Tuesday evening to bring you guys current events and let you know what's happening across the globe and right here in this great nation. So guys, I am so excited that you have joined us, and please join us again next week for another amazing show. Have a great night, everybody.